verse 12. Now this is the genealogy of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's maidservant, bore to Abraham. And these were the names of the sons of Ishmael by their names, according to their generations. The firstborn of Ishmael, Nebajoth, then Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadar, Tema, Yetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these were their names by their towns and their settlements, 12 princes according to their nations. These were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died, was gathered to his people. They dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go toward Assyria. He died in the presence of all his brethren.
Yeah.
Brethren as in kinfolk, not brethren because he didn't have, his brethren, his half-brethren, because Isaac was his half-brother, and then Keturah had sons by Abraham, which would be half-brothers to Ishmael.
Yeah, all of it. Yep. He died in the midst of a meeting. Well, first of all,
because they were all sent to the east.
Yeah. So yeah, they're in northern Arabia, which today is Jordan and Syria. That also kind of tells us where the again, that's a scribal. The last verse you read, they dwelt from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt, as you go towards Assyria. That part there in verse 18 is a scribal gloss, a little, what we would consider we would today put that as a footnote, but the scribe that was studying the word of God that day made a note kind of in text to let people know, hey, it's been several generations since these words were written, and not everybody knows the region we're talking about, so here it is, kind of deal. But and again, that beautifully helps us date when the Bible was, or at least when the latest that the text of the Genesis specifically could have been written. And lo and behold, it's not what mainstream secular Bible scholars think it is. But we've actually talked about that a few episodes ago. This is episode 30. It's going to come out sometime late September, early October. Right now we're in August recording this, but you can go back a few chapters and a few episodes, maybe 3 episodes ago we talked about it. I can't remember. But if you want to get a deeper discussion of how we can date possibly when this was inserted here for our benefit, and how that pertains to the dating of the Bible, specifically the book of Genesis. But like you said, he died in the presence of all his brethren. It's talking about, all his kin and his half-brothers. The verse 17. These were the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. Now the sages of Israel have taken this kind of formulaic wording to mean something. Basically, we see that usually, in fact, as far as I know, in every circumstance in the Bible where we see that it's used in relation to a righteous person that died. So it's hinting at Ishmael was a righteous man at this point. He wasn't always that way. He was a troublemaker. He was a hater of his brother. He he was not the best of men. Um, and his and it, the Bible makes it hints at it being more than just your typical sibling rivalry, but at now it's hinting at the fact that he's repented, he's made shuvah, he's turned around, and he's living with his brethren in peace, or was living with his brethren in peace, that he had made amends, and um, he died in their midst, meaning he wasn't cast away anymore. He wasn't left out in the cold anymore. He was brought in. He was brought back into the family, and he was surrounded by uh, love and respect. And um, yeah, it's beautiful. To answer your question, I guess that is. But going back to the 12 tribes that would descend from Ishmael, um, the Arabs themselves say that Ishmael actually married a Yemenite woman from the um, tribe of Qahtan. And, the Bible says that he married a woman from Egypt. So maybe he had multiple wives. Maybe one wife died and then he remarried like his father did. We don't know. Um, but what we do know is that as far as the Arabs are concerned, they're all Ishmaelite by way of marriage, meaning Ishmael married into the Qahtan tribe in Yemen, and then, his descendants married more of them, and they just became one people. And that's kind of what they mean when they divide the existing Arab world into two categories: those who were originally Arab and those who were assimilated into the Arab culture. But his descendants are going to be three of the most important Arab tribes. Nebayot would be the ancestor of the Nabateans, and y'all can go and look up the Nabateans and read about them on your own time. Yetur becomes the um, ancestor of the Idureans, and again, you can look them up in history. But Kedar is by far the most important Arab tribe, as far as I'm concerned, because their impact lasts till this very day, in the sense of, Kedar has a son, Fir, and then he has a son, Quraysh. And if you know anything about Islam, around the end of the 6th, beginning middle of the 7th century, I can't remember off the top of my head, a mad prophet arises out of Petra, contrary to popular belief, in Jordan, and he preaches a different gospel, and he leads millions astray. Today there's almost 2 billion that are led astray by his heresy. Of course, I'm talking about the famous mad prophet from the Quraysh tribe, Muhammad himself. So he's a northern Arab tribesman. It's interesting because they think he's from Mecca and Medina. You know, that's Hijaz is the area that he grew up in. Is the modern belief amongst Arabs, amongst Muslims. But interestingly enough, the description that the Quran gives and the Hadith give regarding his birthplace, the place he grew up, doesn't match anywhere in the Arabian Peninsula except for Petra itself. And when we look at the first, well, some of the oldest mosques that are still used today from North Africa all the way to China. New scholarship actually has made some findings that are interesting. You know, today all the mosques face towards Jerusalem. When you pray, you're facing towards Jerusalem. Before that, they didn't. At some point, they changed direction in the direction of Jerusalem. And the first few, until the schism, actually faces Petra. And you know, during the schism, some faced Jerusalem, some continued to face towards Petra, some started facing the Hijaz area, you know, where Mecca and Medina are. But it's interesting that they're facing Petra, and that's because that's where not only Muhammad was born and raised, but that's where the black rock that's today in Mecca actually came from Petra. So that's where it came from. And just little tidbits, right? Trying to make these genealogies interesting. Mm-hmm. Why do we care? Because, well, you know, Islam is causing trouble all around the world. You know, wherever it goes, it brings nothing but bloodshed, pain, suffering, despair, blatant human rights violations, the dehumanization of women, and slavery even till this day. So yeah, it's, you know, today's world. You know, all the trouble that Britain and France and Germany especially are facing comes from this religion and the, you know, all the problems that it brings with it. And
I seen something on Facebook today talking about Islam, and they all hate the people in these other countries hate the Islamic regime over them, and then they move somewhere else, and then they try to bring that all back.
Yeah.
You know, they're unhappy over there where they're at, so they come to a place that's is good, and you know, you can be a normal human being, and then but they want to destroy it and make it just like the place they just left that they hated.
Yeah.
It's very odd to me, and England has really been taken over.
Yeah.
And you know, you see stuff in the news constantly about what they're doing. They just had a riot of some type going on there, where they had their knives and such, and the police never did anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now,
I was gonna say, thank God that we're allowed to have our guns and such, or we would end up being just as bad as England in the shape that they're in. But
yeah, I mean, look, we already have inklings of the beginning of that in Dearborn, Michigan, where more than 60% of the population is now Islamic, and they're enforcing Sharia law on the people on the streets of America. We got to deal with that. And now there's two different housing developments. One in Dallas, Texas, of all places, where they're actively trying to write the Constitution and bylaws of this homeowners association such that good Christian folk and Jewish folk won't want to move in. So it's kind of like a passive redlining, racial and religious segregation going on there. And of course, that's unconstitutional, and something's going to happen. Something has to happen. And then there's one, I believe, in Tennessee where they're actually trying to do the same thing. And actually, as far as I understand, the Tennessee court system has come down on them because they were not as smart as the folk out there in Dallas, where they were making it very blatant. But if you care about your country, if you care about freedom, wherever you are, America or Britain or whatever, check out 2C TV. That's TOUSI.TV. And 2C TV is also on YouTube. Maher 2C is the guy that started it, and he's still the main host. He's a Iranian, a Persian, British citizen. He's a Christian. I don't know how close he is to the Lord. I don't know what his walk looks like as far as that's concerned. But he's a British patriot and a Iranian patriot, and he's done some good journalism on that, and he and the guys working with him are reporting on these kind of issues daily.